and may the odds be ever in your favor. Hey everyone, so if you're like me, you've seen the Hunger Games movie, which was great, but you haven't actually read the book yet. So this is going to be a rather shameless imitation of Alex Day's Alex Reed's Twilight. But he hasn't read the Hunger Games yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Part 1, The Tributes. If you've seen the movie, you know what those are. So Chapter 1. Alright, so it starts off with somebody in bed, which I'm assuming is Katniss. Her sister's asleep and she's kind of watching her sister and saying how beautiful she is and how my mother was very beautiful once too, or so they tell me. She's not totally convinced. But sitting at Prim's knees, guarding her, is the world's ugliest cat. Mashed-in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. A flattering description of the cat. And she's named Buttercup. It's a boy cat. He hates me. And for good reason. She tried to drown him when she was younger. So she's finally getting out of bed now, and she puts on her dirty old clothes and puts this piece of goat cheese in her pocket, which is a gift from her sister. So she lives in Scene, which is a district of District 12, and it's a coal mining area. Okay, I remember this part from the movie. So her house is on the border of another area called the Meadow. She gets underneath this high barbed wire fence. It's supposed to be electrified, but they hardly get any electricity in the area, so it's not much of a problem. She has her bow and arrow ready to go. In the woods waits the only person with whom I can be myself, Gale. Hey Catnip, says Gale. My real name is Katniss. But when I first told him, I had barely whispered it, so he thought I'd said catnip. Look at what I shot, said Gale. And he holds up a loaf of bread with an arrow through it. So, he's a good hunter, obviously. So she's practically drooling over this bread. It cost him a squirrel, and she's got that goat cheese in her pocket, which goes really well with this bread. And they decide they're gonna make a feast out of it. So they go fishing, and they come back with a bag of fish and some strawberries. And now they go to a place called the Hob, which is the black market, and they trade their catch. They trade with this woman called Greasy Say. Katniss says that she's the only one you can count on for dog, consistently. Once you throw it in the soup, you can call it beef, meat is meat. I guess if you're starving, I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so you're talking about this thing called the reaping. I guess it's the lottery for the Hunger Games. The poor people can add their name additional times in exchange for food. It's just a way of the capital dividing the people in the districts so that they're angry towards each other, and it's like a way for the capital to control its subjects. So they go back home, so her mom gives her like this blue dress, and her sister says, "You look beautiful," and Katniss responds, "I look nothing like myself." Okay, so they're going to the square, it's 1 o'clock, and attendance is mandatory unless you're dying, and 12 through 18-year-olds are lined up by age. So on the stage, there are 3 chairs, a podium, and 2 glass bowls with slips of paper, one with girls' names, one with boys' names. And 20 of those slips in the girls' bowl say Katniss. So she obviously had to enter her name many additional times for extra food. So exactly at 2 o'clock, the mayor steps forward and starts to read. And he tells the same old stories he does every single year about history of Panem, a country that rose out of the ashes of North America. History of Panem is there is this shining capital with 13 districts surrounding it, and in what they call the Dark Days, the districts rose up against the capital, and 12 of those districts were defeated. The 13th one was obliterated, completely wiped out. And this is all known as the Dark Days. And the capital prevailing imposed punishment for the Dark Days, and that's known as the Hunger Games. So the rules of the Hunger Games are rather simple, as Katniss says. Each of the 12 districts has to put forth 1 boy and 1 girl each year, and they're imprisoned in an outdoor arena where they fight to the death, and the last person remaining wins. And this is the capital's way of reminding everybody how totally at mercy they are to the capital. And to make it even more humiliating, the capital requires everybody to treat the Hunger Games as if it were a festivity. Effie Trinket, that crazy-haired woman, comes to the stage and says, "Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Ladies first." She reaches in, digs her hand deep and pulls out a slip of paper. Everybody's silent, reads out the name in a clear voice. It's not me, it's Primrose Everdeen. And that's chapter 1. So if you enjoyed this video and you'd like me to make more, please do subscribe, thumbs up, perhaps leave a comment.